previous section, we looked at how even accurate data can create a completely wrong impression in the way it is summarized, grouped, or presented through the choices made about what to show and what to leave out. But even when the data is clean, complete, and fairly represented, the human brain can see patterns that simply are not there. Our brains are amazing pattern recognition machines. Throughout human history, spotting a pattern quickly kept us alive, like a rustle in the grass, a shift in the weather, a change in your enemy's behavior. So the brain evolved to find patterns quickly and to treat them as real. But the world we live in today is very different. It contains a very different kind of randomness. Stock markets, organizations, complex systems and data. The randomness here is layered, noisy, and deeply deceptive. And our brain's default pattern recognition system was simply not built for this. For more than 90% of human history, seeing a false pattern was harmless, but missing a real one could be fatal. So the brain learned to over-detect, to find patterns even when there were none. Which is why when our brains are faced with complex random data, they find patterns anyway. Patterns that feel completely real, but patterns that simply are not there. This section is all about that. We will go through 6 of the most well-researched and understood ways that this can happen. And we will see how these show up in real-world decisions, management, and leadership. Let us start with something simple. You are watching someone flip a coin. It comes up heads. They flip it again. Heads again. Then heads a third time, a fourth, and a fifth in a row. What will you be thinking? That tails is now overdue, right? You will think that the next flip simply must come up as tails. That feeling is completely natural and completely wrong. And it is called the gambler's fallacy. In fact, the coin has no memory. Each coin flip is completely independent of the flip that came before it. The probability of heads on the next flip is still exactly 50%. It's still 50% probability of heads and 50% probability of tails. The gambler's fallacy is one of the oldest, most persistent, and most costly errors in human judgment. In fact, casinos are built partly on this fallacy. A roulette wheel lands on red 5 times in a row, and people start betting heavily on black. They are convinced that black is now overdue. They believe that things will balance out. But the wheel has no memory either. The probabilities are still the same. One of the most dramatic real examples of this happened in a Monte Carlo casino in August 1913. The roulette wheel landed on black 26 consecutive times, and each time it happened, the crowds bet more frantically on red because people were absolutely convinced that red was overdue. But the probability remained the same, and millions of francs were lost. Now there is a genuine statistical principle called the law of large numbers. Over several thousands or millions of coin flips, the proportion of heads and tails really will converge towards a 50-50. That is real. That's what the 50% probability means. The proportion evens out over time. But that does not mean that past imbalances get corrected. There is no catch-up or corrective balancing mechanism. The 50% probability is true only for a very large number of coin flips and not for 5 or 10 flips, not even for 100 flips. This happens a lot in the workplace decisions too, especially in leadership and management. Let's say that a project has gone over budget 3 months in a row. Everyone is thinking that we are due for a good month. Things will even out. But if the underlying problems causing the overruns have not been fixed, the next month will not be better. It has no obligation to be better or to balance out the odds. In fact, things may actually get worse if the root causes of the problems continue. Another example. Let's say that your team has had an unusually high number of customer complaints this month. Someone says that it will settle down next month. These things average out. But if the root cause has not been identified and fixed, next month has no reason to be quieter. The complaints were not bad luck. They were a signal, and signals do not go away on their own. The question to ask every time is simply this: is this next event truly independent of what came before? If the answer is yes, then what happened before is irrelevant. The slate is genuinely clean. But if the answer is no, if the same broken process, the same unresolved problem, the same unchanged conditions are still in place, then waiting for things to even out is not a strategy. It is wishful thinking, and things may actually get worse.